Fellas, say goodbye to Chuck Sherman the boy. I am now a man. I highly recommend you join the club. We are doing the wild thing all night.
Acid house music.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Sherm.
Sherman, I cook all this food. Is that all you gonna eat?
General Sherman realized and understood the importance of house music.
So, do you know anything about techno?
No.
Listen.
Yo, what's good, everyone? And welcome back to another brand new episode of Sherm in the Booth. I'm, of course, your host, Sherm, and today is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, and this is episode 188, and I am so excited to share this interview with you all. Episode 188 features the amazing DJ, producer, and journalist Alex Amaro. Alex is an extremely interesting guy who's very well versed in multiple layers of the industry, and he's been in the game for over 20 years. This was such a fun interview, and I know you all enjoy it just as much as I did. In episode 188, we got it all in, and started by talking about his journey into dance music. Born and raised in the Bay Area of California, Alex has always had a passion for music. Growing up, he was in a boys' choir that went around the world and actually sang for the Pope. I mean, what? Eventually, he went to his first rave in 1999 and he fell in love with electronic music. Since then, he's committed his life to the dance music community in so many ways, continues to make a profound impact on both sides of the industry. We also had a great conversation about Alex's experience in dance music journalism. In the 2000s, Alex was given an opportunity to write for a blog run by the one and only Dani Deahl. He was hooked and discovered a new way to share his thoughts on dance music, current events, music, and so much more. He's published articles for Insomniac, DJ Tech Tools, Roland, Festival Insider, and is currently on the staff for Gray Area. I loved hearing how passionate Alex is about his work, and it's amazing to see all the success he's having. Now, of course, we talked about the Alex Amaro Discography. Alex is a very talented producer, and he recently branched away from his Breakbeat project called Psychosis to refocus his time towards house music. His current project, Alex Amaro, combines a fantastic fusion of multiple genres that leaves listeners always wanting more. With releases like Make You Sweat via ODFM Records, Rise via Nightenjin, and Digits via Brooklyn Fire, there's no denying that the future looks very bright for Alex in this new direction he's taking. This was easily one of the most fluid conversations I've had on this show, and it's no surprise. Alex and I both share so many of the same passions and interests, and we genuinely love this community that has given back so much to us. I learned so much from Alex during this interview, and I know you guys will enjoy this conversation as much as we did. Alex, thanks so much for making the time to come on the show, and I can't wait to hang out with you in person one day very soon. Let's get into it right now so you guys can hear his story for yourselves. This is episode 188 featuring Alex Amaro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special interview with my man, Alex Amaro. This is Sherm in the Booth. I think this is episode 188. It's a pleasure to have you on, my man, this deep in the game. Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, man. I really, really appreciate it. Man, 188 episodes? You are swimming in it, man.
Dude,
congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. I just feel like I got to like episode 70 and I was like, all right, I'm flying. 100's coming. Did episode 100, and then all of a sudden it was 150, and now all of a sudden it's 188, and I'm 12 away from 200, and it's just been wild. I feel lucky because I found my true passion in life, which is literally talking to people, like I said earlier, about what they're passionate about. Yeah. And it's so special, and it's great connecting with people like you all over the world. I think that's been one of the great things for the podcast too. I usually was doing it before I decided to do them remote in person with people in Chicago, right? There's so many people here that are talented, but
oh yeah, for sure.
I think I've interviewed every single open format and house and tech house DJ in Chicago. It's so funny when I go to a show, not saying I'm like a celebrity, but it's like, I like know every single DJ that's there. Cause that's so much of the scene, right? It's like actual DJs and producers. And it's so fun, man. Every time I think about leaving Chicago, I'm like, nah, this is my city. I've been building my name here. So it's been a special
Chicago's
process.
A beautiful city too. There's, if you're already entrenched in the scene, there's no reason to leave. I mean, I couldn't do it. I don't do cold. And y'all got torrential winters, but
I know it. Yeah.
Chicago in the summer is a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I appreciate the reminder there. We're stubborn about it, man. We're stubborn about it. I saw this hilarious quote from like this famous Chicagoan, and he said, "I love everything about Chicago except January and February." And you could say that to anybody of Chicago, no matter how stubborn they are, and they would say, "I completely agree. Thank you for that."
Yeah, I'm cool, man. I'm cool.
You went to ARC though, Labor Day
did.
weekend, right?
Yeah, that was my first time in Chicago.
No way. What a special weekend for you then.
It was absolutely amazing. Got to hang out with some good friends. Got to enjoy like some of the best music on the planet.
Dude,
And
that
lineup was incredible. The Elro tent was popping off like the whole time. And I got to say, like, for a first time festival, the production, the sound, the way it was set up, everything was really, really well done. I mean, I know the festival organizers have been in the game for a really long time.
Yeah.
But no matter what, anytime you go out there and you do something for the very first time, there's just so many externalities, so many factors that could like hinder you, or things that you may not have thought of. And they just did the damn thing. I was really impressed. Like, I can't wait for next year. I know they're expanding to 3 days. And like, big ups to them for getting all those mixes on Apple Music too.
Dude,
like,
so sick.
Yeah, like Camel Fat's Sunday afternoon set at Sunset was probably like one of the finest moments of me being a raver slash house music fan. Like, watching, they had the perfect music for a Sunday afternoon sunset. Like, just like, it was beautiful. And like, getting to like relive that like once a week on Apple Music has been fucking amazing. So
how many times do you listen to it?
I don't know, probably like 15.
Whoa, that's how you know.
Yeah,
I know those sets.
Yeah, I probably listened to that like once. I listened to that, and I listened to Cascade's EDC set from this year like once a week.
Dude, one of the first times I went to a live show, I just remember like being so just enamored in the moment and just feeling like, wow, how can I relive that? Didn't really even know that a lot of times they release live sets. And every single time I went to go work out or wanted to get pumped up for something, I listened to a live set. And that's just been like a part of my life for the past 7 or 8 years. There's nothing like it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's ever since I had an iPod or a CD player or something that I could put like pre-recorded music onto myself, there's always been a DJ mix going.
Alex, let me ask you this. I just remembered I used to do this. I used to do a mix for a run or to exercise or to have for my own of like my own mix. That's why I wanted to start DJing. I was like, I think I could put this together better than this guy and do this and that. Those mixes, I came across one recently. Oh my God, it's so bad. But you know what?
You want to take it back? I came across a mixed tape, an actual tape, double-sided tape of me playing UK Hard House.
Let's go.
From like 2000, I want to say 2003. Yeah, it's not good. Not very good, but hey, I still had fire track selection, but
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I totally feel you on that. I used to do that all the time. Actually, when I first got CDJs and I had like a computer that could burn CDs, or I had like an iPod, I made more mixes back then that I never released, just to like listen to the new tracks that I got off Beatport that week.
Yes.
And in a mixed format, because I was like, hey, nobody else is playing these songs.
Right.
I want to hear them.
Right.
I'll just put it together myself. Like, I never released any of these mixes, but I mean, that's how, it's part of how I like became a good DJ too, is because I was like just practicing all the time and like actually practicing for the moment of creating something. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Not just like in the bedroom, but just actually thinking about like how to build a set and how songs layer nicely over each other and how to like sample things and do all the fun stuff that you do while you're DJing that nobody pays any attention to you, but you know is happening.
Oh, completely agree. I think it was Afrojack who said when he was growing up, he used to throw bedroom festivals where it was just like him. I mean, that's the best. I have a sub pack and I'll throw the sub pack on and I'll literally, this is a little embarrassing. I'll put in my earplugs like I'm literally DJing and I'll crank that shit and I'll feel like I'm like literally at the show. And that's how I get into it, man. Like I love it so much and there's nothing quite like it. But thank you for sharing that because I thought I was one of the only DJs that's like just doing mixes for themselves.
No, I've done it. I did it all the time. Even up to a few years ago, I and I would put together a mix with the intention of putting it out sometimes, and then just never get around to it. But it would just sit on my SoundCloud because apparently that's become the repository for all recorded information among DJs and producers. Like your SoundCloud no longer is the place to promote yourself.
Yep.
It's where you just store everything. And I can go. I went back. When I changed from Psychosis to Alex Amaro, I went back and I like was deleting stuff. And I was like, oh man, there's mixes on here from like 7 years ago that I forgot about.
Dude, I need to look back too. Like my old one that was like connected to my first Facebook profile. There's probably some whack shit in there, but I got to check it out too.
Check it out anyways. Like saying, you probably still had fire track selection back then.
I think I did. Yeah. A lot of big room early in the days, changing the drops, thinking that was smooth, but
yes.
We all start somewhere, and now I like minimal. Now I like minimal tech house.
I love hearing how like everybody's gone like on these crazy journeys from like place to place. Like when I talked to Ferric Dawn actually said his first DJ project and producer project was hardcore. Like
no way,
straight up gabber.
Yeah, straight up gabber, 170 BPM. Let's go.
Yeah, even Camel Fat.
Yeah.
One of the guys from Camel Fat used to be, up until maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, was producing hardcore and happy hardcore.
Dude, Mark from Solardo was a dubstep producer.
Right. And
dude, these guys get kicks and bass. That's what it is. These guys
from Gorgon City was producing breaks and bassline, like early bassline house.
Which one Kai was, or which one?
Is it Kai? It's FOMO.
Oh, Kai? Yes. That was his moniker. Yeah, I think his real name is Kai. Yeah, true.
Right. Like some of like
those UK guys.
Yeah. Well, they get, like you said, they get bass and kick drums.
Yes, they do.
How they work together perfectly.
Dude, I can't tell you how many guests that I've interviewed that I start talking about, the early inspirations and influences. They start by talking about death metal. And like the dubstep, like they started by being a dubstep producer, love death metal, punk, and these guys' sound design on tech house and techno is like it's next level because they just look at it differently, right? Like I think that's the interesting thing about being a producer. Your influences from the early days, they're always kind of there, boiling a little bit, right? But it's like whatever rises to the top, but it's all still part of the same ingredient. I mean, I'm sure that kind of resonates with you because you've had 2 projects now.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, it's funny, like a lot of what I did as a breakbeat producer still reigns true today. Like, there's still a little bit of breakbeat in what I do. Like the backbeat of everything is still a breakbeat. It's just got no kick. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just adding a 4/4 kick underneath it. But like, even like in terms of sound design, like there's so much crossover between genres. And even going back further than that, I mean, like I have a classical background too. And just that kind of musicality plays through my music too, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's, everybody is just an amalgamation of all of their previous influences, even the stuff that their parents listen to. That's why I always love to start off my interviews with asking, what did your parents listen to in the house and how did that influence you? Because you get some of the most incredible answers. People will just go back into the vault and talk about like listening to the Beatles, or LPGO be talking to me about like her parents being deadheads and selling grilled cheese sandwiches at dead shows before.
I love that interview, man.
It's just crazy to like, I think that's the beautiful thing about music is like everybody has their own sound because everybody has their own musical DNA.
Yeah.
That's been formed not just by them from being a teenager or by their friends, but also from their parents, just listening to music in the car on road trips and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's all a beautiful tapestry.
Yes, perfect. And when you're a kid, right, like you're so influenced by your parents' emotions because you're vulnerable, right? Like you're trying to read the world through people that you trust, older siblings, your parents. And when you see them, because music has so much emotion tied to it, right? 100%. But like I said, like when you're trying to figure out what emotion is, there's no words that you can do, right? That's when like my mom used to sing Bruce Springsteen. She still does. She's not a good singer, but seeing how happy she would get when Thunder Road comes on, and she's like dancing around, and my grandpa loved musicals, and now I still love rock and roll and musicals, and my dad loved Journey and all that stuff. And it's so true, man. Like it is part of your musical DNA, and it's definitely a large part of the reason why I love music too.
And I grew up with like such a rich, like it's crazy now thinking about it because you mentioned musicals. I mean, I was in musical theater as a kid and as a teenager, and I grew up like listening to Phantom of the Opera and Les Mis, like and all of these, you know, and I love them. And then also my dad was big into like classic rock.
Okay.
So he had a lot of like you know, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles and
Rolling Stones.
And you know, Chief Crazy Horse and all of like, you know, late 60s, early to mid 70s stuff. And my mom loved soul music and also what was ever on the radio. So I heard a lot of Pointer Sisters and even like Neil Diamond for some reason. Like my mom would listen to literally anything. And my brother is 4.5 years older than me. And he got into hip hop. I mean, because he's so much older than me, like I started hearing hip hop like probably when I was like, I remember hearing it when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
On tapes. And like I heard a lot of hip hop and R&B and soul from like the late 80s and early mid 90s growing up too. So even by the time I started forming my own musical taste, I had all of this stuff like, and then I was in a boys choir. So I had like a classical influence going on there too. Like,
wow.
So
and you were in NorCal too, which is its own type of music scene, the whole
which
West Coast rap scene and
exactly. Like I heard Too Short was big.
Yes.
Like I remember Too Short tapes my brother had like from like 89, 88. Like I mean at that point Too Short had probably put out like 100 albums, you know what I'm saying? But
that guy he literally changed the status quo with like what you can do as a rapper, just hit.
It's crazy.
Music.
It's so crazy. And like I mean, I could still play "Blow the Whistle" today in a set, a remix of "Blow the Whistle" today in the set.
I do play
still goes up. Oh, so do I.
Yeah,
I definitely play it. I have a Stanton Warriors remix of "Blow the Whistle,"
dude. People love that.
And you drop the volume on that one part, and everybody knows it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. How does everybody know that song,
dude? That's so funny. That's like one of the most playable tracks as a DJ that you know will work, and we thrive on those.
Oh, it's fun. It's just a fun song. Like he knew what he was doing, and there's a whistle in it. And for a bunch of ravers, you're even at a hip hop club or at a rave, everybody still loves a little toot toot on it.
I might have to clip that one. That was good. That's awesome, Alex. Very cool, man. It's obvious that music is ingrained in your blood and in your bones and everything about you, man. So it's just 100%. Cool to connect with someone who's so passionate about it and still pursuing all these leaders. You've been in the music industry for 20 years now?
Yeah, I think I went to my first rave in 99.
Okay.
And really quickly, like maybe I went to my first rave in 99. It was like a massive, but I don't think I got it until I went to my second rave in October of the same year.
Okay.
My first pill. And then it clicked.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like dove in, and from that point on, I was just kind of sold on it. And I think I started promoting probably at the end of the following year. Like I started passing out flyers for promoters and showing up early to parties to help set up. And I started DJing in my bedroom. That's around the same time. And I think I got my first gig in like 2003.
Whoa. So you were like all about it, like fan first.
Yeah, fan first. But I'd already been in music like semi-professionally before that, like for
like you said, in the boys choir, right?
I was in a boys choir. We traveled around the world with the boys choir. Every year we went on a summer summer tour. And like in the boys choir, I sang at St. Peter's Basilica for the Pope like twice.
Wait,
and
what?
Yeah. We sang at New Year's Day Mass for at St. Peter's.
What the hell?
With 10,000 other.
I shouldn't say hell. I'm sorry.
It was just a thing. Like my brother was.
That's
in the
so
boys
cool.
Choir. Yeah, I got to do some really pretty awesome things when I was in the boys choir, and then when I went into a high school choir that was competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in show choir and jazz ensemble and men's choir and concert choir, and we competed at the state level and like won competitions in all of the choirs. So like that was like my entire high school career. And then I had met to major in vocal music when I got into college, but by then I was already like heavy into the rave scene. So vocal music stopped being as much of the focus, and I wanted to do other things. But like music has literally been all I've done, been the biggest thing about my life for longer than I can remember. So like kind of moving into the rave scene and like thinking I can turn this into a career or try to turn this into a career has been just kind of the trajectory for me for forever. Because I remember even when I was a kid putting like a bunch of random electronic things on my bed and playing music studio. Like this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. And yeah, I mean, when I got into the rave scene, I was a promoter, then I was a DJ, then I helped throw parties. And then I don't even know, I fell into journalism.
Into it, literally.
I fell into journalism. Yeah. As a breaks producer, I had a friend who was running a blog, and he was looking for writers, and I was like, I guess I could write about tracks,
Yeah.
and decided to start doing that. And I did that for like a year, and then I ran into Dani Deahl on the internet of all, where
she's the queen of the internet. Yeah.
Where you run into Dani Deahl.
Yeah.
And I think we became friends because I had done like a breaks edit of one of her and Sue Cho's tracks from like years and years ago, a Dutch house track.
Right.
And we started following each other, and she put a call out for writers for her blog for DaniDeahl.com back in the day.
Oh yeah. She told me a lot about that. Yeah. It's awesome.
And I came on staff for that. And then she said she put a call out when Insomniac started to do their editorial site. When they had one for a few years, I think for about 5 years. And
so this is mid 2000s then, just for timeline.
2011.
Okay,
was so when I started. When I started writing for Dani was like 2010, I think. And then Insomniac started their thing in like 2012, late 2012.
Right after the Avicii boom, the EDM boom, less so Swedish, right? Special
and
time.
At the time,
yeah.
It was, and at the time they still had like Thump, and you still had like the Nest the Nest HQ. Like there was a lot of blogs still around. Like
forgot about that.
Yeah, so they started their thing, and I was one of the first freelance writers to sign on at Insomniac. I think I started there in 2013.
Badass.
And then I just kept doing it. Like I started off as just doing track reviews, and my editor John Ochoa. Shout out John Ochoa, like one of the best editors in dance music. He works at Grammys. He works for Grammy.com now. He started giving me more stuff. I, on a whim, wrote an article about Dirty Bird, because this was before Dirty Bird was like internationally renowned. Dirty Bird was still,
they were NorCal based, San Francisco.
But it was a big San Francisco thing back then.
Yeah.
Dirty Bird barbecue literally was a free party in the park in Golden Gate Park for a while. And the first time they did like a larger show on Treasure Island, I went for my birthday, and I came home very inspired and wrote an article about Dirty Bird, and they published it and they liked it, and they were like, we want you to do more.
That's awesome.
I got
heavy into love and passion. That's so cool.
I got like heavy into writing, and at the same time I was always been producing and DJing. Always.
Jeez. You got your hands on a lot of paths. Dani called herself a multi-hyphenate, and you most definitely are as well, Alex.
Yeah, I guess that's accurate. Yeah, I've definitely, and that's beyond like just writing and producing and DJing. I've also worked in tech, and done like label management and A&Ring. I've tried to do everything, which has been like a huge benefit. It's a benefit like in my current job, because I'm able to speak on so many different things.
Absolutely.
And from a place of having done all of the things before, like working with like Spotify's and Apple Music's and talking about how those things work, and just like I having that understanding of the music industry is like such a huge benefit to me, especially in like my current job, because I talk to DJs and producers all the time, and being able to relate to them on the level of like, hey, I've been in your shoes before, maybe not on the level that you have.
Right.
I'm not touring internationally, but at least I understand on the most basic level, like what it's like to release songs and what it's like to write a song and what it's like to DJ and all of these things that like not everybody can connect with another artist on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm sitting in the same chair there with you. Totally. And Yeah, dude, listen, you got to be a sponge, right? And it sounds like
Yeah.
you definitely have done that. You got to always be, I try and say I'm like observing and absorbing. I'm always
All the
trying to
time.
learn, ask questions, put yourself out there, be respectful. Because if you don't ask, no one's gonna come and hold your hand. So you
Oh
got
no,
to do your
100%.
best to learn. And that's the thing too. A question I wanted to ask you, and since we're on the topic, is there's a lot of people out there that want to get into the industry, right? And
Right.
you can give them simple advice to CNBC and industry, network, message, introduce yourself, get better, hone your craft. But there's a lot of people that are now at this point that are maybe like us, right?
Right.
But it's time to take it to the next level. But they need to know how to read a label contract. When do I need a manager? When do I need an agent? How do I get festival gigs? How do I get signed to this label? What is the next step for me, right? And that's something that you could probably provide wisdom on in saying different sort of pieces of advice.
I mean, like, I feel like the number one thing for me, especially in dance music, because it's such a small community, and I say this all the time, the first thing you need to do is be nice. That's it. Is you just need to be nice. You need to be respectful, because it's not a huge community, and you're just going to end up working with the same people over and over again for the rest of your life. That's just how it is. Like, you're just going to keep running into them. Like, it happens to me all the time. Like, I get thrown into an email chain to talk about something, and I look at like this person's manager, and I'm like, oh, I've worked with this person before, and I've worked with them like 5 or 6 times, or like another DJ or people.
And they're like you. They've been here. They've been there. They've been there. They know this person, that person.
Exactly. Like, it's just a huge revolving door of people. So always be nice. And above all else, like, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask even the most important people for questions. Because sure, lots of people will never message you back. Yeah. Lots of people are too busy to. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they may be too busy to message everybody back.
Yep.
But you never know when someone's going to respond to you.
Yeah.
And if you have a question that you feel like only one person can answer, the best thing you can do is just ask that person the fucking question. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you never know if they're going to respond. Like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't shoot.
Yep.
And a lot of a lot of people get ahead just by throwing it out there. Like, especially with DJs and like producers, like, it's frustrating as hell sending your tracks out to labels. Yeah. And knowing for a fact that they never get listened to. 100%. It's super frustrating. But you know what? But you gotta keep pushing at it, because all it takes is one person. You're gonna get 150 no's. All it takes is one yes. And you got it. Like, it's not even about having a thick skin. It's about saying, like, hey, if you know your worth, and you know that you know what you want, and you're passionate about this, and you want to stick to it, there's really no other option. And that's how it's always been for me. I've never had another option. It's just music. I really like that. Yeah, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
I've had people flat out tell me, oh, you should get into tech. And I'm like, that just sounds boring, man. I don't want to do that.
I'm from Oakland. Music. This ain't San Fran, baby. Come on.
I don't want to do that. That sounds really boring. I'm sorry. I want to be in music. I like what I do.
Yep. I love that. Yep. You got to be unapologetically yourself. And that's 100%. So true. It's a simple piece of advice. I can't tell you how many people I've messaged. And that's the thing too. Half the battle is identifying, who do I ask this question to, and trying to save that time. The other half of it is, what is the right question? Because sometimes you have all these things mixed up in one, and there's a lot of younger producers and DJs that reach out to me, and, you know, they ask me the simple questions. How did you get to where you are? And I told them, 1, a lot of hard work, and 2, patience, but also 3, making sure I get up every morning and I love what I'm doing, regardless of what people define me as successful or unsuccessful. Because
and you know, defining success for yourself is really important too.
Yes.
Because not everybody's measure of success is the same. And it's something that changes for you from year to year and day to day. But if you can count any wins in the book for yourself, that's a success.
Yeah.
Getting one DJ gig where you play in front of actual live people is success. During the pandemic, getting on any live stream and having any amount of people in the room watching you is a success. And you can build on the smallest successes, because everybody started out in a room playing to the promoter and their girl or boyfriend and, you know, the bartenders.
Yeah.
You know, everybody got to start somewhere. So you have to measure your success by like where you're at the time, like, and be patient, like you said.
Yep.
You got to play the long game.
You do. That's
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the most humbling parts of the industry to me is like, you know, you've talked to a lot of big DJs, but when I interviewed Sid, you know, I go in thinking this guy's massive. He's collaborating with Cascade, and this guy's on a record label. Like this guy's done it. He's Grammy, won 2 Grammys, right? Like, what do I have in common with this guy? Everything in common with this guy. He's just years down the road, right? And he's never stopped. And it was a very humbling experience for me. And talking to producers of all shapes, sizes, experience, years in the industry, they all start somewhere. And there's really no shortcuts. And if you do take shortcuts, it's a quick ledge from what I've learned. So
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like there, you know, it takes 10 years for overnight success. And like
I saw that tweet recently from Melee. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you even the people you think blew up overnight, you know, everybody's like, where'd this person come from? They came out of nowhere.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. They've already been doing this for 10 years. You just didn't know about them until now.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Is like you just didn't know it, but they've been doing this forever. Very seldom do you find a person who's like, oh, they've only been producing for 3 or 4 years or 5 or 6 years. It's
Very
rare. It's rare.
Very
And there's
rare.
a few of them out there right now, and it's easier to do that now with all the resources people have.
No barrier to entry, man, when you're a kid, right?
Yeah. But that's still super rare. You're gonna have to put in some years of work to get anything.
Yep. And I think that's one of the double-edged swords about social media these days is it's so easy to compare yourself to those people who are successful in a quick amount of time. And I brought up John Summit many times, and you know, he's probably the biggest artist of this year in house music. He's one of those guys.
100%.
He's a humble, nice guy from Naperville, Illinois, man, who like has worked his ass off to get here, right? And people think he's an overnight celebrity, and
no, not at all. Actually,
not at all.
I used to work at a DJ mix company that was distributing DJ mixes to streaming services. And I remember we got a bunch of mixes. This is probably like 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And that's the first time I saw John Summit's name.
No
was on
way.
one of these mixes. Like he's already been doing this forever. He's been releasing tracks like
Long time.
for a while now. And like all of the I call like builder house music labels. The labels that everybody looks to find out what the next thing is.
Yep.
He's released on every single one of them. Like, you know, like your rock bottoms and hood politics stuff, like all of these labels that have like I've been the farmhouses for the new talent.
Yep.
He's released on every single one of these labels. Like he's been doing this for a long time. He's probably got a catalog of like 50 or 60 releases before Deep End even came out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's hard because I think a lot of people are like, oh wow, John kills it on social media, that's why he's big. And it's like, listen, you're looking at such a small fraction of people, right? When there's millions more people that are trying to make it. But when you see just a certain amount of people, because like you said, it's a small industry. There's only so many popular labels. There's only so many festivals you can play at that we consider reputable or whatever, right? And you see those names and you're like, he got lucky, whatever. No, you just got to know that I live by one fan at a time motto, Alex. That's my 100%. Thing. One fan at a time. If I can make an impact on one person, if I can ask one question, if I can do one thing, and it's just to make a positive impact on people, that's my only goal. And I know that that's, again, fulfilling for me, and that's what's going to make me do this for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you can touch one person's life, you've done your job.
Done more than most.
You've done more than most people. I mean, anybody that's in the music industry that has the opportunity to be in front of anybody at all or gets paid any amount of money, it's a blessing.
It is.
It's a blessing, and you know that's how you got to count your wins. Like it's a blessing to get on stage ever.
Yeah.
And never in the history of music have we realized that more than now. Like
so true.
How much of a blessing it is to stand in front of even a crowd of 3 people sometimes and do what you do.
For sure. And it's great to see what's happening in North America too. I know you're very knowledgeable on European markets, and Gray Area is originally are they European based?
No, so Gray Area was started by Michael Julian. A lot of people know him as MJ.
Okay.
He was one of the founders of Electric Zoo. He's been in the New York scene for ages. He's been throwing parties in the New York scene for ages.
Wow.
And Gray Area also, MJ's also like the North American guy for Elro.
Sick.
And Gray Area is started off as like an events and marketing company, and the editorial platform started earlier this year with like our spotlights, and has now expanded into like magazine, which is more of the journalism stuff. And we're also going to be doing like event recommendations and like travel adventures. We're just really expanding right now.
Cool.
But it's a New York based company of people that are super passionate about house music. And the aim is to expose North American audiences to the broader community of house music all over the world. I mean, there's people in Europe who are pulling multi-million streams, like 10, 15 million streams. They're playing at festivals all over Europe. They're booked in Ibiza all summer. They're headlining. They're playing in front of 10, 15,000 people. And you would never see their name on a US
get a gig
lineup.
in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles.
Exactly. Like, and it's kind of sad. Because there's there's a lot happening over there. And I think, what we really want to do is kind of unite the house music community back together. Like the US has done a really great job of uniting itself, and it has its own own group of people. A lot of people move here just for that, like from Europe. And this is a special time, because there was a time when people wanted to move to Europe for theirs, and now people want to come here because it's so big here. So we want to make it so European, European acts from South America, and even just outside of the US can get their due here. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. And that's why I asked if it's European based, because you have this European mindset about like everybody's welcome, right? And you guys were hyper focused on house music on a global scale, but reporting from, US ground. And I was like, this is a really, really interesting company and brand what you guys are doing. So thanks for that explanation. That's awesome. And everybody's got to go check out Gray Area, because it's legit. Like the whole message is there, and it really is an exciting time in North America specifically, because we've always kind of been behind the curve, just in terms of timing.
I mean, we, house music and techno emerged from the US, and then when it hit Europe, it hit the UK and Europe, it exploded there. And I've always thought, having traveled there when I was in a boys choir, I see, let's be honest, like Europe just has a longer history in general. So they've had a longer time to appreciate music of all kinds. It's entrenched in every culture in Europe. When I sang in the boys choir, we would sing here, and the only people that would show up were our parents. We would go to Europe and sing at a church. And the church would be full of people.
They don't know you.
They don't know who we are. And they would give us a standing ovation at the end. And I'm like,
damn.
But this is how deeply entrenched music culture is there, that they just appreciated of all kind, music of all kinds. And I think that's why dance music blew up there too. Because they're just open to it. They're just open to all of the things. They're just a little bit more discerning. And the US is a little bit more pop culture focused. And once dance music turned into pop culture, then it became a thing. And what's great about that is, say what you will about EDM, but it allowed space for all of the other things to start to thrive. And we're past EDM now. We're way, way past it.
We are. You mentioned it's really just a marketing term.
It is the market. Yeah, that's what I had a very, very a viral tweet, I guess.
I couldn't agree more.
People were angry about this, but EDM is a marketing term. It was.
What were they angry about exactly?
I think people have trouble parsing the idea that EDM at one time meant something specific. EDM, when people first started talking about EDM as a term, it was used to explain one very, very specific part of dance music. And the thing that I was trying to say is, Chicago house is, it's EDM if you want to call it that, but Chicago house isn't EDM. Chicago house is Chicago house. And I think we've gotten to the point where we should be able to just call things by their name. Like dance music is much broader than most forms of music. Like if you look at rock is really broad, but nobody's calling heavy metal just rock. They're calling heavy metal, and they're calling punk, and they're calling alternative, because all of those things have those are the distinct styles within the genre, within the larger genre.
Yeah.
But only in dance music are people like, oh, it's all EDM. And it's like, no, because trance is trance and house is house and techno is techno. I think we've gotten to the point now where we can call things by their name, and we should be able to educate people if they haven't heard it. Most people in the world, in the US now, have become familiar with dance music in one way or another. I think we can start calling things by their name. And I think people were a little upset because they're like, oh, well, you're gatekeeping. And I'm like, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm just saying we should call things by their name now. We can do that. We've gotten to the point now where we can, at the very least, say this is house music. Not everything is not EDM.
Yeah.
EDM was a very specific moment in time.
Absolutely. So well said. And I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the reasons I love Twitter too. I feel like you get a lot of actual real, clashing feedbacks. And it has been a mission of mine as much as I possibly can to spread the good word of Chicago house music and Detroit techno and the role that it played. I mean, so many people that would even maybe call themselves big dance music fans probably don't know that one of the main reasons Europe blew up with it, electronic music, was because of Chicago and Detroit, right? Like literally the OGs, like Farley Jackmaster Funk and Frankie Knuckles and the Saunderson brothers, right? Like their sound,
their music there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. I don't think a lot of people know Frankie Knuckles is actually from New York. So he brought some of that new. Yeah.
Well, he broued the Paradise Garage sound.
He did. Yes. Okay. I knew you know what you were talking about.
Well, I mean, what's funny too is people talk about like the United States influence on European dance music is undisputable, because first of all, a lot of them still talk about how their sound is Detroit based or is Chicago based. But even beyond that, like even the term, like the genre garage, the reason they named it that is because of the Paradise Garage.
Yep.
That it literally takes its name from something that existed in the US before it. So, it really makes me happy to see dance music kind of coming home again, like recently, like in the last few years. Like it's nice to see America back on top and kind of owning that. And also to see like people of color starting to own that part of the history too, because that's something that always gets missed. Like for so long, people said, and I mean, I got this when I first started going to parties. Oh, raves, dance music. Oh, that's white people stuff. And I'm like, but
really?
Yeah, that was like, I want to say in like the early 2000s, late 90s. That's, it was not considered a part of Black culture in some parts of the country. And it's just as much a part of Black culture and, the LGBTQ population as hip hop or voguing or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like
absolutely.
So it's nice to see people recognizing that again as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Slowly but surely. I know to mention Dani again, she's been a huge proponent and speaker for LGBTQ, people of color, like females, of course. And as the change hasn't happened as much as we'd like to since her TED Talk about women's STEM and EDM, but I do think it's at least heading in the right direction. I hear people talking about it more and more. And I think it's really exciting too, because as I can speak for myself, right? Like when I first got into electronic music, it was that Avicii boom in 2011, right? The first electronic music song I actually ever heard was Warp 1.9 by the Bloody Beetroots and Steve Aoki.
I love that song.
I was blown away. I'm like, what the hell am I? I think it was one of the first times I was drunk too. And I was like, what is going on? But right, like you're like, I want to go hear this live. Big Room Progressive is really popular, 2011 to 2013. Flosstradamus original Dawn remix kind of sparks this generation of trap. Dubstep Rhythm Have a Rhyme and a Time. House is always kind of still there, right?
Always.
It's always growing. It's never really slowed down. And then I realized, okay, I love this music still. I love this energy. I love this community, but I can't headbang for 3 days like I used to. I'm growing up. I get hungover as shit, Right. So I still want to go, but I want to listen to house because I can do that for an extended period of time and I can enjoy that. And I see that happening collectively now. So I think it's just proof that we're really coming full circle right now with the scene and
The scene
house
is
music
definitely it's
specifically.
progressing. It's
Yeah.
progressing a lot. And I mean, even other sectors of the scene are progressing too. Like people have definitely found their niches. Like seeing hardcore start to get like a US presence is kind of crazy. But like I feel like a lot of EDM kids, as you grow up, I feel like your tastes you start to slow down and your tastes get a little more discerning and you need something a little groovier all the time. I still like to rage out every now and then.
Me too.
I'll still wander into the drum and bass room and check
Oh
it
yeah.
out. And
Drum and bass is growing too
it's
lot.
growing. Yeah. And I'll go to the bass pod at EDC because I may not be headbanging, but I still love dubstep. But
Yep.
house is where it's at, man.
It is where it's at, man.
House is where it's at.
It's great to see. It's
Yeah.
really great to see. And like we mentioned Chicago a lot, and I'll be the first person to tell you that there's been a lot of ups and downs in the house music scene. And thanks to ARC and a lot of the promoters here that have opened new venues, and we have a lot of establishments that are just legendary, right? Like Smart Bar, Spy Bar,
Right.
Sound Bar, all those sorts of places. But now it's the talent that we're bringing in. We just had Solomon come play at this new venue called Radius. We had
Radius is amazing.
Did you go?
Yeah, I did.
Dude, how sick is that place?
It is it's one of the best venues I've been to in the United States. Like it is
Took a long time to get that venue. We've needed that venue.
I know. I am surprised that a place like Chicago didn't have something like that for long. That is
Totally.
It's a great spot.
We've got some big venues, but it's there'll be Live Nation run, there'll be more pop promoter focus and stuff, right? And this injection in the past 3 years with younger talent that's really, call them hometown heroes, the John Summits and people like that,
right?
Bringing people out. And it's also too, I believe, like I don't want to call it commercialization because there's vocals, but there's a lot of relatability, to bring up hood politics, right? Like you have tracks that are remixes, call them, of popular songs or edits and stuff, right? It kind of tricks people. I call it open format house, Alex. Like if I'm DJing and I know it's maybe not a tech house crowd, but I know if I give them some sort of sing along that then goes into a fun, danceable track that would be definitely considered house, but they would never listen to it if it didn't have the actual lyrics. And I see that kind of coming full circle now into an originality with singers that are working with talented producers. And I don't think people know that Dua Lipa tracks are produced by dance music producers. I don't think that people know that like, Lady Gaga's album was produced by Chami and Axwell.
Right. Well, I mean, Blessed Madonna is working like heavily with Dua Lipa. Like there's
great example.
The dance music producers, and dance music producers have been doing this for a really long time. Like Cedric Gervais was working with Madonna like over a decade ago.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And like Paul Oakenfold worked with Madonna like 2 decades ago. So, dance music producers have always been a part of the equation. But it's nice now to see dance music producers like really, really like stepping out and being like, being a part of like pop music. But I think also we're in this age of the producer too, where people actually know who producers are.
Yeah.
Because up until like, Neptunes, like you got when the Neptunes and Missy Elliott and Timbaland came along, that was the beginning of the era of the producer. That's when producers were stepping out front as part of the work. They weren't just behind the boards. And I think that's paved the way for dance music to thrive the way it has, because now the producer's not just some unknown face behind the boards. The producer is also the star, and that's important, especially in music where your primary aim is to get DJs to play it.
Yeah. And I think it's also, again, paved the path for people to realize that I can be a producer and I don't have to be a worldwide touring DJ to have a career or be successful, because that's not for everybody. I mean, we've seen that in the worst possible forms many, many times, right? On large and small scales. So I am always trying to encourage people, if they want to enter the music industry, just know you don't have to be the DJ that DJs 5 times a week that travels by themselves. Like that doesn't have to be your end all goal. In fact, it should always be for the music in whatever form you want it to be.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like people during the pandemic too, like a lot of even touring DJs realized that that wasn't the life for them and that they were burning the candle at both ends. And
it's not sustainable.
It's not. You can't do that all the time, especially once you start to get older and you start to have a family. Like, it's nice to play, but
Yeah.
but not all the time, man. Not 5
Nope.
days a week. I can't. You can't even keep up with that.
No, and not everybody's Tiesto with their own private jet with their logo on the side. That's like what people compare themselves to. It's like, dude, there's like 5 Tiestos, right? That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
there's right. Yeah, seriously. There's like Tiesto and Calvin Harris are on, and Diplo are on other levels of
Exactly.
they're of fame and fortune. Like, that's not don't it's apple. You're comparing apples to watermelons at that point.
Yeah, watermelons, exactly. Yeah, it's not oranges, it's apples to watermelons.
I mean, sure, they're both rounds, but they're
Sure.
not the same.
That's funny. I'm stealing that from you. That's good. All right, Alex, I want to talk music with you. We've been talking a lot about, everything else that you're doing, DJing and writing and stuff, but you really are a great producer. You mentioned before you actually started this Alex Amaro brand, you were doing something called Psychosis, right?
Yeah, I was a breaks producer for like 10 years, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I that was like the first thing I really like when I first started releasing music. I was releasing breaks. And I did pretty well. I got to the point where I was an A&R for Punks, which is the Stanton Warriors record label.
Yeah,
And
I've heard.
then I was also like the label manager for Decline's record label for a little while. And I released a lot of music. And for some reason, people told me that my music was good, but I never really believed them. And I was always scared to play my own music out. I did a lot of edits. I did a lot of breakbeat edits of like house tracks.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I wasn't super inspired anymore. And I was like bored by it. And I decided, I was like, let me just give my hand at like making a house song. And the idea for me to change my name was always in the back of my mind. I had a friend suggest it to me. A friend from the UK suggested to me at some point. He told me, like, he said, your name's Psychosis. It doesn't fit you. He was like, how long have you had that for? And I was like, I don't know, since I was a raver. I'm pretty sure I thought of it while I was taking a dump one day. And he was like, no, mate, it just doesn't fit you. He's like, I like your music, but I don't like that name. And he was like, what's your middle name? And I said, Amaro. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's real nice. He was like, you should go by Alex Amaro. And I always kept that in the back of my mind.
That's a good name.
Yeah. And it's my dad's name, too. My dad's name is Amaro.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I spent a weekend in Ableton sitting on my couch producing. And I produced 3 house tracks. And it felt great. I was like, oh, I'm able to encapsulate everything that I've learned about production up until this point.
Yeah.
Into something that I feel like, one, is more me than anything else has ever been, but also I feel like is going to have wider appeal. And I feel it more than I was starting to feel breakbeat. And I sent this stuff off to I have a guy who I've worked with for years who does all of my mixing and mastering for me. And I sent him these 3 tracks and I was like, oh, look, can you do some work on these? And he was like, dude, this is the best music you've ever produced. He was like, stop making breaks. He was like, this is you. He was like, this is more you than I've ever heard you be.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, I started sending these tracks around to friends and they were like, yeah, these are really good. And it was the first time in a long time I'd really felt really, really good about the music that I was making.
Yeah, that's special.
And it was one of the first times that I was ever felt confident enough to play my own music out in my DJ sets.
Yeah.
When there's more than 3 people on the dance floor, when you're not opening, like when I'm not like, oh, or when
Testing
it's like, when you're playing one at the end, I felt like I could do it whenever. And that's like kind of how I came into this. But like, I feel like breaks definitely gave me the foundation to stand on.
Yeah.
Shows
me in percussion for sure. Man.
Yeah. That's where, that's one of the comments that I always get is my percussion is definitely more breaky than how most house stuff is, like,
which really gives it this unique sound.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, that's one of some of the most fun I have is making my drums. And I probably spend the most time on that. Like I'll lay down a kick drum and a hi-hat pattern, but I love making all the sparkly fills.
Yeah.
like the fun fills and like adding weird percussion elements that don't always repeat themselves in my tracks. Like it's some of the most fun is to add the ear candy on the top because I feel like that's what gives the track its spice.
Absolutely. And Alex, so much more makes sense about your sound now. Everything you just said kind of reminds me of this Chris Lake quote that I like to bring up, which is once you know the rules, then you know how to break them.
100%.
And you just mentioned a track that really follows no rules. Your release on ODFM Records, Make You Sweat. Like this track is heat, dude. It's got like a confession vibe, but it's got a little Mala and Dr. Fresh energy to it. I know you guys are going to love this one too. This one's called Make You Sweat by Alex Amaro via ODFM Records. Pace is sick. The bass line is dirty. I mean, do you remember making this track? Because like you must have been inspired because it is good.
It's funny that you mentioned Chris Lake.
Oh yeah,
because the inspiration from that song was Chris Lake and Anna Luno's track "Stomper."
Oh, okay.
So the track they sampled an old school house track for Stomper.
Yeah,
I found this out when I was like. I do on these weird deep dives on who sampled who all the time to find old shit to sample that nobody has sampled in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I found the old track and I sampled it, but I just sampled a different part of it. And then I replayed some of the bits and I was like, oh, cool. That's the piano.
So that was your reference track for sure.
Yeah, that was my reference is that piano line is that. And I just built the track around that. And the vocal is another like it's a snip from an old breakbeat track that I found that I was like, oh, this works, and I'd always wanted to use it, so I clipped it out, and it was just like one of those things where I felt super inspired, and it really worked. That's actually one of my favorite tracks I've ever produced. Yeah. I can't get enough. Like it always goes really well down and really well on a dance floor too.
And the highest form of a compliment, DJ to DJ, is if I tell you it's on the USB. I didn't just heart it on Spotify. I didn't just repost it on SoundCloud. I downloaded that shit, put it in my record box, and I put it on a USB. Okay,
that's how you know. It made it on the USB.
It made it on the USB because a lot of people bullshit you like this track. Are you ever gonna play it?
Are you ever gonna play it though? Tell me.
Yeah. Yes, dude. Yes. It's funny you brought up that track. Have you listened to the Chris Lake and Anna Luno interview that she did on her new podcast?
No, I've been meaning to listen to that. Like, she's a fabulous interviewer, and he's actually a fabulous interview too. He's a great person to listen to talk.
I mean, listening to that interview gave me chills, like, because they're both global, and Chris Lake is one of the top in the world right now, and it's just been really cool to see his rise. I think a lot of people forget about his previous productions. I mean, he literally helped make Boneless with Tujamo and Steve Aoki.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, even before that, Chris Lake was producing like. I remember seeing Chris Lake in a side room at a show, like a massive in San Francisco in like 2006.
Yeah.
And this is like
been around, dude.
He's been around for a really long time and has been producing really fucking great music the whole time. And he's gone through so many permutations of his sounds. But like has been consistent forever.
Yep. And I think that's cool. Like, I mean, it was probably maybe tough for you, even though you were letting go of a brand that you had put a lot of time into, but you knew there was longevity in this next step for you in-house.
And I think that's part of what it is too, is I feel not just the longevity, but I feel more at home in it. And it took me like 2 years to pull the trigger on it because I considered it for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably from the moment that somebody suggested I change my name. And then like I had always played house and breaks. Like there was always house in every single one of my sets. But it started to become more house and more house. And even like I feel like the year before I switched over, like I closed for the Stanton Warriors. I opened for the Stanton Warriors.
Yeah.
And I played like a 75% house set, and I was opening for like one of the biggest breakbeat acts in the world, and I'm like, there's something here. Maybe I should just keep playing house. Like, maybe that's what I should do. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like a long transition. So by the time that I got to where I was doing it, and I kind of announced that I was doing it, I kind of had my game played out. I released one last really big mix where I put all of these like edits and remixes that I had done over the course of a year into it. And I was like, this is my last mix. I'm done with it after this. And people were like, are you ever going to play a Psychosis again? Can I book you a Psychosis for a breaks set? And I'm like, no, you can book me as Alex Amaro to play breaks, but it's behind me now. Like this is me now. I mean, and it's also my name. I feel it suits me.
It's you.
It is me.
That's awesome. Sometimes you got to have that live experience. I mean, it actually reminds me to bring up Cloverdale again. He used to go by this dubstep producer he was named AWOL and had a ton of success, was doing well, but he was playing sets kind of like undercover doing house sets because he was like, I can't keep doing the dubstep. Like, I really like playing house sets. And it's so much fun being a house DJ because there's no rules. There's no rules really as a DJ, but with house, it's up to you. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than when you get to just play the music you want as a house DJ. Don't have to make anybody happy. Obviously, that's part of the goal, but I think that's part of the excitement of being a house DJ.
100%. And I mean, and people ask me too, they're like, oh, so are you like a tech house DJ or a bass house DJ? I'm like, no, I just play house music, man. Like, one of my sets,
I don't know yet.
I don't know yet. Like, you'll hear both of those things and probably like 5 other subgenres of house music and maybe some techno. I don't know, but I'm just playing. I'm playing 4 on the floor shit that sounds good. That's what I do, man.
Yeah, don't you worry about what I play. You'll be moving.
Yeah,
go get yourself a beer, okay?
Just go get a beer and come back to the dance floor. Come on. Stop asking me questions.
Yes, next question. Awesome, man. So I loved your release on Nightenjin. This is a great label run by some fantastic Canadian guys, and your track Rise. They're good. Are they Canadian, right?
They're Canadian. Yeah. Danny's
very Canadian.
Well, Danny is from Canada. Jillian lives in New York, actually, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Danny does the mixes though, right? Because he'll Canadian accents are so funny to me because
that's him.
They'll sound totally normal, and then all of a sudden one word is like, what did they just say?
The boot.
I love it. Nightenjin has been so cool, and they're a great label to me that's done a great job building a real fan base via SoundCloud, because there's still hardcore. SoundCloud obviously has changed and certainly lost a lot of traction, but they've been around, and it's cool to see what they've done. And to see you release on that label, I was like, this is fucking awesome. And your track it's done really well, man. Rise. And you made a VIP edit of it because you knew it was good.
All right, let's check out this heater right now. This one's called Rise by Alex Amaro via Nightenjin.
Rise up. Rise up. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up, rise, 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 rise. 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 Rise up. Mash up the place and there's a rise up. Listen. There's a rise up. Rise. New style, there's a
Yeah, I mean, that was actually when I talked to you earlier about the first 3 house tracks I ever made in a weekend. That was the very first one.
Whoa.
That was the very first house track that I ever produced.
Makes sense.
And the reason it's called Rise, not just because of the vocal that's in it,
Mhm.
but all of the synths, they're all just risers.
Track
all
is so hard, yeah.
They're all just different risers. I was just like, oh, let me see. It worked. And there was like maybe like 6 or 7 different risers, and that's why it keeps switching up. But
Yeah.
they're just all different. Yeah, they're just all different risers with the funky bass line underneath.
It's so sick. And anytime a producer makes a remix or a VIP edit of their own track, that's when I'm like, they really were inspired with this one, because usually it's tough to even just get one full idea out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you were like, did you finish the track? You said it was the first one you produced. When did you actually put your VIP spin on it, and how did you go about that?
So I want to say, let's see, I produced that in like mid 2018 or 2019, mid 2019.
Okay.
And then after it got released in June of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. And you know, I was only playing fucking live stream sets for a really long time. And I think in San Francisco, we had a place called the Midway that was open for in-person shows. It's a large venue that has like a large outdoor area. They were doing dining of DJs. And that was one of the first times I had played it before I had switched over to Alex Amaro, but it was the first time I'd heard it on like a really massive system. And I was like, oh, this is really great.
Hell yeah.
But I feel like I could take it in a different direction.
Okay.
Like, because like I said, I'm kind of on the cusp between tech house and bass house. It's not really definable. And I kind of wanted to give it like a grimier spin. And also I was kind of inspired by Eric Mark, who did the drum and bass remix of it. Him and Vanessa did a drum and bass remix for Word. And that's why I hit him up to do the remix. So part of the reason I did the VIP was to add to the remix package.
Okay.
And also because I wanted to put a different spin on it.
Yeah.
And after hearing his remix, I was just like, oh, I gotta go super dirty on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's dope. Which one do you play live, or does it depend on the heat of the moment?
It depends on the heat of the moment, but I still I play the original a lot. And it depends on the crowd. It definitely depends on the crowd. Like if I feel like I can get a little bit grimier, then I'll play the remix. But the original still has a special place in my heart, because it was like it was like the first thing that I did under this project. And I don't know, it just really hits.
It's cool, man.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Definitely another one you got to add to the USB, people. It works.
Yeah, that's one of the best tracks I've ever produced. I will definitely say. Probably still going to keep playing it for a long time.
There you go. There you go, baby. That's what I like to hear.
I'm not tired of it yet. So, and a lot of my songs I get tired of real fast. So that's got to say something.
And it sounds a lot different when you're listening on your DAW, and then all of a sudden you hear it on Spotify. You're like, I'm hearing something different right now. This is not 100%. What I sent.
This is not what exactly. I'm like, yeah. So this one, it still works. So I'm not mad about it.
Only producers will understand. It's something we have to deal with. Yeah, because you listen to it a million times. But
no, by the time it comes out, you were sick of it 6 months ago.
Yeah, and then the label takes 6 months to sign it and 6 months to release it. You're like, what track is this again?
Like, exactly. I've been surprised before. Like, I see a track coming out, I'm like, damn, I forgot about that one.
Damn.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, I did produce that.
Oh God, trying to fix those things if I can out here in the world, but that would be another podcast for us,
right? Hey, running a label is hard work, man. Like,
it's true.
You know, I feel I can equate running a label and the amount of content that you get to release once you've started to establish yourself to like running a website or running an editorial thing or doing a podcast. Like, you just end up with so many more things than you planned on having, and trying to plan it all out into the future is it's hard. So I feel for people that run labels, man, it's not easy. It's not easy work. No. So I try to be as patient as I can when a label's been sitting on my songs for a year. It's cool. Hey,
yeah, it is.
You know, maybe it'll be better when it comes out if it comes out a year later. Who knows?
Just keep moving and grooving. That's what I always tell people. Yeah. And here's the thing too, there's very few labels that are actual full-on businesses that employ people. You know, not every label is tool room or defected and have employees, a staff. No, like most of the time it's run by, it's housed by some marketing company who's helping with the promotion, and then a DJ who's behind it to help envision it. One label that I've heard great things about is Techni, Noizu's label, and Solotoko. They do great things, and you know, it's tough. The more you grow, like the more demos you get, the harder it is to go through everything.
Well, I think Techni is under Insomniac's umbrella.
Is it?
Yeah. So there's some help going on there.
Yeah.
But
Insomniac is
also
great.
Insomniac is great. And again, they're a bigger label, but truth be told, Insomniac does not have a huge staff running the actual label itself.
I believe that.
There's, maybe 5 to 10 people that are on staff that run everything. They're doing great because they have the Insomniac engine behind them. But in terms of the label itself, it's a small group of people that is doing some really amazing things.
Yeah.
They're, but you look at like a label like Defected or Tool Room, they have offices and like
they probably got 401ks over there.
They do. I mean, these people are like, they have a staff.
Yeah.
But Tool Room and Defected have also been around for 30 years. Like, you don't stick around for that long and not get to a point where you're kind of a machine.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that's these days a little bit lost on up and coming producers is they think a label is the only way that they can grow their brand. The fact of the matter is, like I said, one fan at a time. If you got music, put it out there. Actually, it out there.
That reminds me something Jazzy Jeff said. He said he wants to die empty. And by that, he means there's no need for anybody to hold on to their music. This idea that you have to like have this exclusive stuff that you keep to yourself is silly. Let it all out.
Yep.
He says when he dies, he wants to release everything that he's ever done because he wants to die empty. He
I
wants
love
everything out there in the world. So I feel that. Like I don't want to sit on things. Let the people have it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I produce a lot of my music for other people to play my music too. I want DJs to play my music. I don't need to have it be exclusive.
No.
I mean, no. And I mean, what's the point? Like everybody's got to hear this shit. And, I don't play out enough for me to not give my music to people to play out.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's true. Just put yourself out there, people. It's all you can do. And I'm not knocking on labels, but like we just said, right? Like everybody's got their own personal lives too. I think that's something to understand.
100%. Like most labels, a lot of people that run labels have a day job. They have almost all of them have a day job. So if you don't
make a lot of money in the label industry, people.
Yeah, if they don't get back to you for like 3 weeks, cut them a little break because they probably got life shit going on. And if they listen to your music in the first place, that's a win.
Any response is a win, people.
100%.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, a label I'm very glad responded to you. Your track on Prescribed, Ruin. I mean, Alex, you're a fucking dog for this one, dude. I was trying to catch the acapella. Like, what is the actual sample there? Is it like a splice or is it like a lyric? Because I couldn't. It was so sick.
It's the Humpty Dance.
All right, let's see if you guys can catch this sample. This one's called Ruin by Alex Amaro off Prescribed Records.
Yes. Okay. That's what it was, dude. There was like parts where I was like, what? No, but it's so good, dude. Like creativity on 500.
Thank you. That's another one of those that was inspired by something else. I got an early promo of On My Mind by Psychosis and Diplo.
Yeah. Of course.
And I like the idea of that repeating small stanza of that song because that's just like another really iconic song, like one of those songs that you've heard that before but you're not sure where. And that repeating kind of like chorus going on, and I was like, what other songs would that work on? And I shit you not, I was walking to Whole Foods one day. I'm like in Whole Foods and I thought of that song and I was like, oh, that's one of those ones that would work on. So that's another one of those that was like just built around this vocal. Like I was like, I have this vocal idea, what can I do with it? And apparently I can just throw a bunch of weird sounds on it and a cool bass line and it turns into a song.
Dude, the bass line though, so sick. Like, I gotta ask you about the sound design on that, because you layered it in such a great way where it, like, I mean, it's really tough to do when you produce like you produce, because you have a lot of things going on, but not too much. It
Right.
almost like, what's your style for a track like that? I mean, how do you actually go about layering it? Do you mix and master your own tracks too?
I'm no. I mean, I've never been great at mix downs. I've
Yeah, it's
gotten
tough.
much better. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm my own worst critic. And even if like my mixing guy just told me stop having me mix down your stuff, I'm probably still gonna have him do it because I also feel like I need another set of ears on it.
Yeah.
But I put so much work into the actual composition of it,
Okay.
that by the time I get to the end of that, I'm just like, I'm gassed out. I'm like done. I don't want to hear it anymore for a little bit. I want somebody else to listen to it and put their spin on it. But for that one, um, a lot of the stuff that's going on in the upper register,
Mhm.
and I do this a lot, is a lot of really short clips of samples.
Okay.
Like I'll find a rhythmic sample that I like, but instead of taking the whole thing, I'll just chop out like less than a beat of it and then put a bunch of things together and layer them all together. So a lot of those, like, there's a lot of weird sounds going on up top, and those are all
Yeah.
different clips, different samples, just like all spliced together to create kind of like a moving melody over the top.
Wow.
And the bass line is just, I mean, I do a lot of sample work.
Yeah.
It's just like a heavily chopped sample with with another bass line with a sub layered underneath it. Real simple stuff, man. Like it's,
Yeah.
but it's, I feel like a lot of what I do is just kind of paying attention to the detail in the rhythmic part,
Hmm.
and and keeping in mind the bass line is always like my main focus, like making sure that bass line is rocking. And then I love fucking with samples and just chopping and screwing samples and adding in extra things that don't necessarily seem to fit in house music,
Yep.
but they do. So like dubstep samples or trap samples, like, and just like cutting off that little piece, that little drum roll, and throwing that in there.
Yeah.
And then adding, like, my most favorite thing to do is to find fills to put at the end of phrases to get into the next thing.
Dude, because that's like when I said you have a great pace to these tracks, like I feel like I'm moving within the actual bars. Like it's not like kick where I'm dancing. Like I
Yeah.
found myself really like actually listening to the track. It wasn't so passive, because you were combining all these high level elements on actual like top layer that were really keeping me listening. And then I could feel the bass and I was like, okay, this is a really well thought out composition. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my background in classical kind of comes out there. Sometimes I have to pull myself back from adding too much
Yeah.
to a song, but because I feel like you can add multiple layers, and there's like a certain point I feel like I can take people to a certain point where it's not too much, and I like to take them just to the edge of that,
Yeah.
to where it's like there's enough happening here to keep people interested, to keep your ears going, and to have the to be like, oh, what was that? Oh, what was that? Like, what the hell sound is that happening right now? Like, I like seeing that moment on the dance floor. I like seeing people like stopping to dance for just a moment because they heard something interesting happen.
Yes.
And then starting over again. Like, because something caught them kind of off guard. I love surprise.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You clearly have fun with it, which I think is
absolutely
the best part about what you're doing. There's a lot of producers out there, and for better or for worse, right? They're trying to follow the rules and follow the templates, which is important in understanding music production and music theory. But when it comes down to it, right, like you got to try and be yourself, and that can be hard to do, but you got to, I mean, happy accidents are half of this fucking job, man. You know?
100%. That shit happens all the time.
I mean, I'm sure like it's not like you probably went to the studio one day like, I'm gonna chop up all these samples exactly like you just mentioned, right? Like you
a lot of that is
that.
No, I came to that. Like a lot of that stuff is like me endlessly scrolling through things and finding the thing that works, and then sometimes maybe I chop the wrong part off and put it in the wrong place, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess that works. There's one sound in that song that kind of like in there.
Yeah.
That was that was not intentionally misplaced, but I love it because when I play the song, I can break that piece in. I can chop that piece in. Like I'll do like a quick crossfade back over to that piece, and it just sounds good with every mix.
Wow.
Because it's just weird sound that just happens to work on the offbeat, and I'm like always like I like playing that song because it's like that sound in there.
I love that. I love someone who loves their music. That's what I'm talking about, man.
It took a long time to get here, man. I didn't always love my music.
For sure.
Yeah, I do now.
You clearly do. So I want to end with production wise, your tracks on Brooklyn Fire. All right, I want to show you my favorite Alex Amaro Brooklyn Fire track. This one's called Digits.
Yeah, I gotta get it. 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 Nah, from my blow. Yeah. Stack up money. Stack up money with a lot of digits. Yeah, I gotta get it. Yeah. Stack up money with a lot of digits.
Another really great label run by Tommy Sunshine, who's of course one of the OGs in the game. And what he's done with that label is so cool. The platform he's given producers to really just not stay inside this box, right? I think the perception of some labels is we have this sound, but really from when I talk to people, A&Rs that repopulate Mars and Hood Politics and, Hexagon, right? They want to know what's next. So they're willing to listen, right? And Brooklyn Fire has done a great job of that, in my opinion, right? Like not staying within this box. And your In Soul EP, I mean, they're stellar tracks and they follow no rules. And In Soul, dude, what genre is that? I don't fucking know. It's every genre in one. And I was like, fuck yes.
I mean, what I love about Brooklyn Fire and I love about Tommy is just what you mentioned. Like,
yeah,
he wants what's next. He doesn't want to release garden variety music.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't care where it lies genre wise, because he just like, I just want to release music that I like and music that I would play regardless of what genre it is. And
absolutely,
he just keeps doing that. And Brooklyn Fire had always been one of my targets, had always been like a label that I wanted to release on.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that a good friend of mine, one of the A&Rs there on deck,
he's a man.
Yeah, me and him had like a relate. He was a breaks DJ and producer back in the day too. So me and him have always been friends. We'd always shared tracks, and I sent him
small industry people. Remember that we mentioned it.
Yeah, it is. I sent him In Soul like through a text message. I was like, "Oh, check this out." He was like, "Yeah, I want to sign that." I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, I want that one." And I don't even know where that track came from. There's just a lot. There's a lot of like influences happening there. There's like some hip hop stuff happening, and there's like fidget house and some
fusion.
Some tech house going on. It was just one of those things where I was just like kind of throwing everything into a blender there. And experimenting. There's a lot of happy accidents in that song.
Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot of happy accidents in that song.
I felt some electro, like I feel like you had, it was sort of like an electro energy, but with like trap percussion, but also with like bass house kick. I mean, dude, it was so sick. Like, you don't know what the fuck's gonna happen in that song.
That's that's another thing where it's like element of surprise. Like,
yes.
And then like there's that kind of disco string thing that happens in the breakdown.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I just
go to why not?
And that was actually the second or third version of that song. I tried it 3 different ways and sent it to a friend, and he was like, no, it's this one. This is the one you need to stick with. That's the one with that's the heater. And I went back and listened to the other 2 versions of that song recently. I'm like, oh yeah, those are never seeing the light of day because they're garbage.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. You're a special producer. Do you have any music you can tell us about that's going to be coming out? I know you got a lot you're working on for 2022.
I have a bunch coming out on Brooklyn Fire.
Okay.
I did a remix of I did a remix for On Deck, and then I have a remix for Bitch Be Cool, which is On Deck and Domi. Um, and then I have like 2 or 3 originals coming out with Brooklyn Fire. And then there's a smaller label that I'm part of an artist collective called Gold Block here in San Francisco.
Okay.
And Gold Block is starting a record label. Our first release is going to be next year, so I have a release with them.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of music that I haven't found a home for yet. Like there's like, maybe like 4 or 5 tracks that I've just, haven't figured out where they should go yet. So we'll see what happens with those. But I do have like almost a year's worth of releases planned out for next year. But I'm always down to like release more because, like I said, I want to die empty. I have a lot of music in me, and I'm working on some for the first time working on a lot of collaborations too. Right now with some cool people. So hopefully those will be coming out, in the next year as well.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
A lot to look forward to.
A lot to look forward to. I'm really excited about the next year of music. I feel like, since I started the project in 2020, 2021 was kind of light, but also like a good builder year, like to kind of figure out like where I wanted to take things. And I produced a lot of music.
Yeah.
So 2022 is going to be like another year where there's just going to be like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. And I think there's a real openness too, just to kind of like bring it full circle with where like the North American market is right now. Like people are really willing to hear new music and
100%.
And outside the box music. And I think that's why we're seeing so many of these sub genres have success too that have been there, right? Like I mentioned, like minimal tech and really whatever genre some of your tracks are, right? Like a little bit of everything. People are like, I want to hear new stuff. And I think we can both agree these days, what we have access to in regards to plugins and collaboration opportunities and how we go about producing and really just the resources in general. Music just keeps getting better and better, and it keeps sounding cooler and cooler.
Well, I mean, that's where you get producers like Blue Claire, who's
just
like another one of these
example.
people where I don't know where to classify his music at all. I just know that it's like Blue Claire and Kyle Watson. In terms of like most exciting producers of the last like 5 or 6 years, they're right at the top of my list because you cannot put those guys into a box. Like I don't know what genre they're producing, but I like it.
So true.
And that's all because of like, because everybody's has like, there's a limitless potential in what you can do now with software, just limitless.
Yeah, true. And I think it's almost like I didn't even realize that, you could use Zoom to do interviews and Facebook Live and things like that, right? Like you see collaborators that are meeting with each other that are in Russia and Los Angeles and Chicago and South America, right? And it's easier because we've all gotten used to it. So I'm seeing Brazilian bass producers collaborate with a, more of an electro house Canadian guy. And it's just like, it's such a cool time in electronic music right now. And it's just, I'm just so excited. Like every day I wake up, every Friday, I'm like, gosh, how this is insane. The new music that's coming out, and it's just relentless. And I love it.
It's crazy. Like it's a really exciting time to be in the dance music scene. And, we're blessed to be a part of it. And just like, it's just really exciting to see all these new people come out, like a lot of left field stuff just coming out. And house and techno right now is just slaying, like across every subgenre of those. Like it's just slaying. It's ridiculous. Like, I hear something every day where I'm just like, I don't even know how you did this. And I'm really upset that I didn't think of it. But even some of the simplest ideas, I'm like, fuck, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, I know. But hey, at least you and I have the ability to and have the opportunity to interview people who are willing to talk about that.
100%. I think that's like, again, like we were talking before, that's like one of the best parts of what I do is getting to sit down and talk to producers and DJs about what they do and about how they figured out that they could do what they do or how they got there. Because a lot of it, sometimes the journey is is just as interesting as their music. Like some of these stories are just absolutely incredible. And it's such an honor to have people like share some of that with me. Like it's really great. Like it's the best part of my job is getting to sit down and interview people.
I know. I love it so much because
yeah,
in the beginning, I thought the only way to get to know people in the industry was to go up and give them a shot as they're DJing and then hope for a conversation later or something like that. And it doesn't have to be like that. In fact, a lot of times we want to connect outside of the club.
No, I've made way more connections outside the club than I have inside the club. The whole idea of networking. Come on, dude, you're just going there to get drunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're just going out to party, and even if you're not getting drunk, you're really just going out to party. Like you don't. Yeah. That's here. We're talking earlier about tips for producers and DJs.
Yeah.
Don't think that you have to go to every show.
Yep.
You don't. You do not have to go to every show to be successful. You will make way more connections over the internet than you will anywhere else. I have way more internet friends that I'm hoping to make in real life friends in the future than I ever made at the club. Like I met lots of people at the club. Did I have a lot of interesting conversations there?
Sure.
Maybe not. Sure I
did.
But like did they all produce something tangibly like beneficial for all parties involved? No, and maybe that's not the point, but you don't have to be there every weekend. It's not necessary. And sometimes maybe you should just save it. Like Jaws did not take a booking until he felt like his music was ready to be played out. He didn't go to a lot of people, they won't go to festivals until they get booked there. And I feel like that's kind of a cool process to take it. Like, hey, I'm going to sit inside and work on my craft and perfect that before I spend every weekend out. Because every weekend you spend out is just another 4 or 5 hours you could spend making beats, man, or looking up people on the internet and doing ridiculous research on them for hours and trying to figure out what questions to ask them, whatever it is that you're passionate about in the arts.
Amen.
Spend lots of time making art.
Great pieces of advice, Alex. I feel I could literally probably talk to you all night. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought of 10 more questions, but we're coming up here on the time limit for the night. This has been such a pleasure connecting with you, man. And
absolutely, me too. Thank you.
Honestly, like I'm inspired by your journey. I know you've mentioned you're inspired by other people's journeys, but like I'm still young in the game, man. And to see you so passionate all these years later still, and just as passionate, if not more passionate than like your first rave. More passionate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I really do. Like genuinely, that's awesome. And I hope your story inspires others on any level. DJs, producers, writers. There's a lot that you can do in this industry, and that is the double-sided coin of it. It's small, and that's what makes it fun. We like to go to the clubs with people we know once you know them. 100%. Why do you think the club's fun with your best friends? Because you already know them.
Well, I mean, I always tell people like I don't go out unless I'm DJing or one of my friends is in town.
Yes.
And there's a special event going on because if one of my friends is in town, like from out of town, and they're coming to play, I'm like, yes.
Right.
I know it's going to be a really fun night. We're going to go out to dinner. That's going to be a whole night. That brings me back to when I first started going to parties. Like when it was like special every time you went out. And sometimes you just got to save the good ones for that.
Amen.
Yeah.
So true. Take notes, people. Take notes. Alex, such a pleasure, man. I really do mean that. You enjoy your night, and
thank you, you too.
I can't wait to be real life friends. We're currently internet friends, but let's take it to the next level as soon as we can. Okay.
Absolutely. Anytime you're in San Francisco, let me know. And next time I'm in Chicago, we'll definitely be hanging out. And
dude, for sure,
you could show me a better place to get than Portillo's to get a sandwich.
I got you. Don't you worry about a thing, my man.
Yes.
All right, Alex, have a good one, man. Thank you so much for making the time, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too. Thank you so much.
Man, do I love Sherm in the booth. Oh, hey, I think you do too. Hope you enjoyed that piece of content. If you're looking for more, make sure to go to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any upcoming Sherm in the Booth interviews, live sets, new music, exclusive artist interviews, Sherm's Word, sub-pack reviews, and more. This is your one-stop shop for everything entertainment. Cheers.